Disciple here. All praise be to the Most High. The Most High comes first. So it's going to be a short stream, but there's so much to say, but so little time, and so much to do as well. But we're going to try to get through as much as we can in as short a time as possible. So in the house, he put up this post that an insider within Warner Brothers stated that when David Zaslav took over, he wanted Zack Snyder to take control of DC, but Warner execs voted in Peter Safran. Peter Safran later stated he would only do it if James Gunn was brought on board with him. Should have stuck with Zack if this is true. He says an insider within Warner Brothers said that. The execs were really stupid to pick up Peter Safran. I guess the success of Aquaman was what they were looking at, but they didn't realize that success was really came off of Zack Snyder managing DC. So, too bad. Too sad. Antonio Omega Aguinaga, he posted this. Superman, as he's walking by Warner Brothers, which is on fire, instead of going to save it, he changes into Clark Kent and whistles as Warner Brother burns away. It is what it is. I saw a podcast from the Lethal Geeks who were interviewing Wayne T. Carr. Wayne T. Carr said, just keep the information out there, This is Vinny's meme. It's funny. Vinny says, what I ordered and what I received. From Beckham Movies, actually. He borrowed it from Beckham Movies. Sammy reminds us of the WB trailer that Warner Brothers tried to delete. They actually removed it after it got, I think, 595K likes. Warner Brothers removed it. I remember this very well. They put it back, but they removed it first. And the amount of sabotage they tried to sabotage this movie, it showed how desperately the hate was, that they didn't want it to succeed. And imagine a studio not wanting a movie to succeed, a studio preventing sequels of a movie. Why would you do something like that? Why are you so invested in a different direction that you try to stop something that's successful? Or maybe going in a different direction to where you're going, but why do you need it? Unless it's a vendetta. They had a vendetta against Zack Snyder. Vinny responds, which is really great. So what's on Netflix says, Rebel Moon's director's cut failed to make an impression in the second half of 2024. Part 1 was the 410th most watched movie of the last 6 months. And part 2 was the 363rd most watched. Beyond a planned video game release, there's no active plans for a third movie. Now, this is what's on Netflix was said. However, if you say Rebel Moon is a flop movie that has $166 million USD budget, which Zack Snyder gave 4 movies from time to time, first 2 movies debuted at #1 on Netflix, and it has been loved and praised a lot by fans. Don't share false rumors just to help us restore the Snyderverse. Just help us restore the Snyderverse. And this was the report. Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon, 70 million budget, 34 million views in the first week. The Russo Brothers, The Electric State, 320 million budget, and only 25 million views in the first week. The point being that Rebel Moon was the number one, I think it was top 10. It was the number one movie for, I think, about 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. And it became the number one movie again with the sequel. Even though those first two movies, in my opinion, were not the best quality movies. The director's cuts were better movies. The director's cuts, I watched both of them. I thought they were fantastic. I think if the director's cut came out instead of these movies, I think it would have gotten even a better response. So please just put out the director's cuts. You don't put the director's cuts out after a movie has been seen. That's kind of stupid. But they did that. Anyway, Zack Snyder's Justice League anyway. Sorry, not Zack Snyder. The Rebel Moon did well. Obviously, Netflix wants more Rebel Moon, no matter what they tell you. And they're going to move forward with that more than likely. I have one thing to share with you guys before I go into other stuff. Let me see if I can find it here somewhere. Is it? No. I can't find it, but I'll find it when I can find it. There are a lot of things to share, but I'm going to start off first with this. I already identified the Henry Job Foundation. So they will not watch these war crimes, but here is a war crime. Basically, thread of videos from the IDF using the Turkish Friendship Hospital as a base before they completely destroyed it. This is the first one. IDF soldiers enjoying massage equipment meant for cancer patients, February 14, 2024.
אז איזה כיף, בבית החולים בעזה השאירו לנו מכשור לשחרר שרירים. תודה רבה לכם חבר'ה. דש לבן כספי מבית החולים.
This is the second one. This is IDF soldiers destroying medical equipment for fun. As you can see, there's no Hamas there, right? IDF soldiers vandalized the hospital with slogans for racist football teams.
יום אחד נכנס איזה יהודי לרכבת.
This is a video of the hospital used as a military base by Israel, not Hamas.
הוא מסתכל על החפץ חיים בפנים, והוא לא מזהה שזה החפץ חיים. פעם לא היה פייסבוק, אינטרנט, טלפון וכל הדברים האלה שמזהים לראות. אתה מה ידבר על החפץ חיים? והתחיל ממש להיכנס בו, ניסה אותו, חינך אותו, נכנס בו כמו שלא צריך, כן? כי זה החפץ חיים בסוף. לא היה צריך.
Okay. The name of the soldier in the last video was reported as Nathaniel Zedek. Names are important. I already identified the Hind Rajab Foundation. So they are now notified of this. Scenes from a video posted yesterday by the Israeli soldier Natag Zedek in front of the emergency department and blood bank in the Turkish-Palestinian Friendship Hospital, which has been occupied by Israeli occupation forces and turned into an Israeli military barrack. Converting a hospital for non-medical purposes is considered a violation of international humanitarian law and a war crime under several provisions. Article 19 of the First and Second Geneva Conventions, which stipulates the protection of hospitals and prohibits They're used for any military purpose. Article 18 of the first additional protocol to the Geneva Conventions prohibits the use of medical facilities for the purposes that are incompatible with their medical missions. International criminal law, especially regarding International Criminal Court, considers this conversion a war crime if the hospital is used directly support military operations. By the way, the video tells a regular story about, hold on a second. By the way, the video tells a regular story about the wisdom of a man and nothing about the war, so I didn't translate the whole video. Here's the page from our archives of the videos filmed at the Turkish Friendship Hospital. It's called TikTokgenocide.com. You may find the list of locations in our video archives at this link. From there, you can use your browsers to search for functionality. So the Turkish hospital that they destroyed, that they say Hamas was there. Now, there's video footage showing that Hamas wasn't there, but actually that the hospital was used as a military base for the IDF. Completely illegal to international law. And we have a soldier who is implicated in this, and that soldier is an American soldier who is also carrying out military operations as Israel. He will be in deep shit legally. See, that's what these people think. They think they can bullseye anybody and call them Hamas and run around with lies. No. Behold, your sins will find you out. What's in the dark will come to light. And then your ass will be grass. The Turkish hospital that they destroyed, it's located here, along the Gaza Strip. There are several examples of where the IDF soldiers have been given directives to destroy certain areas. That was the directive. It's clearly they were following a directive, which is to make Gaza uninhabitable. This has nothing to do with Hamas. And this is direct evidence to prove that. Can't get more incriminating than this. Excuse me? This is the hospital being destroyed. Okay. Secular talk says if this was a Roman salute, these must be Roman candles. Cause and effect, baby. Cause and effect. Notice the similarities of Roman candles with Warner Brothers and Musk's empire of Tesla. Hey, Rabbi, what you doing? The anti-Semitic attack on Kosher Cafe in Canada was staged by owners, police say. So again, we've seen it in Australia where the Jews themselves, the Zionist Jews, have been trying to play victimhood. They bombed or put bombs in vehicles outside of their own establishments. We see the same thing happening in Canada. We know it happened in the UK. This is what they do to drum up support. And they always bombing up things. You ever notice they're always exploding things? Terrorist activity. ISIS is an extension of them. ISIS that's inside of Syria. Same kind of people. wreaking terror upon the Islamic, the Christian communities inside of Syria. The war on terror isn't against Islamic people. It's against Israel. It's against America. The Mossad CIA operations. There's tremendous unrest in Turkey right now. Mad protests all over Turkey. Because the people can see through the bullshit. The idea of just arbitrarily abducts Palestinians from their workplace and again terrorize them. Mohammed Zafar asked and requested you guys provide aid for the people in Palestine. Check out his GoFundMe. You can follow up with him to see where the aid is going. It's a dead Palestinian child. He's not identifiable. Abdullah Omar said, the Israelis put young men in a large pit and opened fire on them with machine guns. This happened in Rafah. Aaron Bastani, who interviewed Matt Kennard, and Novara Media, found out from Matt that the British military is flying their RAF planes over Gaza and bombing Gaza. The British are involved, the Americans are involved, the American Israelis are involved. They're the ones manning the aircraft. They're the ones giving the intel. It isn't Israel alone carrying out this operation. American Zionists affiliated with Israel are wholeheartedly carrying out these operations. Mr. Schumer, Senate Minority Leader, admits that no one is allowed to say anything about Israel. And here's why. Donald Shore exposes that here's Chuck Schumer holding a check at a mid-February fundraiser hosted by Invariant, the top lobbying firm for both SpaceX and Palantir. The woman in the photo is Invariant CEO Heather Podesta. Paid to play. Alexander the Meh says, there's so many liberals out there who don't understand what's happening. I think this picture could be their Rosetta Stone to decipher it if they just look. I was talking to somebody yesterday and I was saying, the Democrats are disgusting. They've been evil people for the longest while. They keep on selling out the people. They have absolutely nothing to say while Donald Trump does all this evil that's happening. There's not a peep from them. Pelosi said Democrats will never move left on economics because they're capitalists. Yet there's an entire political machine, Bernie, AOC, Justice Dems, TSA, conning people into thinking a party that serves big business, the military-industrial complex will move left. This is where AOC and Bernie get things really wrong. The Democrats are in fact fighting hard. They're fighting hard to convince you the only problem is the big scary GOP, that the only problem is the big bad scary GOP, all while serving the exact same big money interests as the GOP. The capitalist oligarchy fills our brains with endless propaganda about how free we are. So we won't wake up and realize there's no freedom in every aspect of our lives. It's commodified to enrich the ruling class. They arrested Jill Stein recently. She was charged with assault when they assaulted her during a protest. More Americans turn to living in their cars. Dozens of parking lots have opened across the country for working people who cannot afford a car, who can afford a car but not rent. Welcome to America, the land where working class people have to sleep in their cars while billionaires live in mega mansions that stretch multiple blocks. Thousands show up today in an emergency protest in Times Square to protest Israel breaking the ceasefire agreement and demand an end to Israel's war. Listen, this entire thing is connected. I got more. Oh, yes, I got more. This happened back in 2016. The shooting of Daniel Schaefer. On January 18th, 2016, Daniel Leighton Schaefer of Cranberry, Texas, was fatally shot by police officer Philip Brailsford in the hallway of La Quinta Inn and Suites Hotel in Mesa, Arizona. Police were responding to a report that a rifle had been pointed out the window of Schaefer's hotel room. After the shooting, the rifle, previously assumed to be a lethal weapon, which remained in the room, was determined to be a pellet gun. Following an investigation, Brailsford was charged with second-degree murder and a lesser manslaughter charge, but he was found not guilty by a jury and later rehired by his department. Now, let's go into it. According to a police report, Schaefer had been staying at Mesa La Quinta Inn and Suites on business. He invited two acquaintances, Monique Portillo and Luis Nunez, to his room for drinks. There, he showed them a scooped aerial rifle he was using to exterminate birds inside grocery stores. At one point, the gun was pointed out his fifth-floor window, prompting a witness to notify the hotel receptionist. Following this, police were immediately called by an employee at the hotel. According to a police report, Schaefer had been staying at Mesa La Quinta. Okay. Nunez left the hotel room shortly before 6 police officers arrived at 9:20 p.m. The officers, led by Sergeant Charles Langley, stood in the corridor outside Schaefer's hotel room and called out to the occupants to exit the room, but received no response. Portillo later testified that she and Schaefer did not hear those initial commands. Police then telephoned Schaefer's room and again ordered the occupants to step outside. Schaefer and Portillo then walked into the hotel corridor, while Langley gave them orders for several minutes, while the other officers, including William Brailsford, trained rifles on them. Portillo was taken into custody, unharmed. Langley then ordered Schaefer, who was lying prone at Langley's request, to
cross his legs. Moments later, he ordered Schaefer to push himself up to a kneeling position. While complying with the order to kneel, Schaefer uncrossed his legs, and Langley shouted that Schaefer needed to keep his legs crossed. Startled, Schaefer then put his hands behind his back and was again warned by Langley to keep his hands in the air. Langley yelled at Schaefer that if he deviated from police instructions again, they would shoot him. Sergeant Langley told Schaefer not to put his hands down for any reason. Schaefer said, "Please don't shoot me." Upon being instructed to crawl, hands down and crawled on all fours. While crawling towards the officers, Schaefer moved his right hand towards his waistband. Brailsford, who later testified he believed Schaefer was reaching for a weapon, then opened fire with his AR-15 rifle, striking Schaefer 5 times and killing him almost instantaneously. Schaefer was unarmed and may have been attempting to prevent his shorts from slipping down. An autopsy report found Schaefer was intoxicated, which police stated may have contributed to his confused response to their commands. Schaefer's widow requested that the police department release body cam footage of the event. The request for body cam footage was initially refused. In a recording released by Schaefer's widow, purportedly of a meeting between her and the Maricopa County prosecutors, she was told she could watch the video only if she agreed not to discuss its contents with the press. Prosecutors and defense attorneys in Brailsford's murder trial asked that the body cam footage be sealed. Maricopa County Superior Court Judge Sam Mayers granted the motion to seal the footage. On May 25, 2016, Mayers ordered the portions of the video released. She ordered portions of the video released. The released video omitted the shooting itself. The redacted version included footage from Brailsford's body camera up to the time when someone exits Schaefer's hotel room and footage from another officer's camera while he escorted a woman from the room. The full unedited body camera footage of the shooting was released by the Mesa Police Department hours after Brailsford was found not guilty of murder and reckless manslaughter. Now, by the way, this is the officer that shot him, who is on active duty. Okay. I think I have the footage somewhere here. I may have it. And you will say, well, why am I going to show you the footage of this? Well, I don't know if no, I didn't. No, I didn't, unfortunately. But there's actual footage out there you can always go and find. I think there's a link also to get to the footage. But what I wanted to show you is this happened in 2016. It's at grounds. A lot of police officers are trained in conjunction with the Israeli police force and the Israeli military. So they have very much a shoot first policy, even though the person may be unarmed. And we've discussed in detail why body cam is not a good thing. The police are not there for your protection. They're really there as a militia to enforce policies from the government. They're supposed to be law enforcement. They're not. I tell you this because when I look at the police cracking down on protesters, abducting protesters in violation of the law, we're beginning to realize the police are not there to enforce the law and protect people and keep the peace, but they're there to intimidate and as a militia easily mobilized to take out citizens. Namrock said, fuck the police. I truly believe that. Are there good police officers? Absolutely. But look at this. A police officer kicking a handcuffed woman. Does that look like enforcement to you? This has been going on against minorities for a very long time, but now the police are exacting their violence against any citizen. It doesn't even matter that you're white. And if you can't see that these people in power have their attack dogs coming at us, if you can't see that's what's going on, then you are blind. Michael Jackson said it. I'm going to repeat it. They don't care about you. You can't sell your morality for a paycheck and still be a good person. It's a logical fallacy. The police. Here it is. This is extremely graphic and disturbing.
Who else is in the room? Nobody. Stand by, William. All right. Are you both drunk? No. All right. So you're not going to have any problems understanding anything that I tell you, right? Correct. All right. No, you're not going to do anything but come towards us. Young man, you are not to move. You're to put your eyes down and look down at the carpet. You're to keep your fingers interlaced behind your head. You're to keep your feet crossed. If you move, we're going to consider that a threat. And we are going to deal with it, and you may not survive it. Do you understand me? Yes, sir. Young lady, shut up and listen. All right? You are to keep your feet crossed. Take both of your hands, put them flat in front of you. You are to push yourself up to a kneeling position. Kneeling position. Now, put both your hands in the air. Okay, crawl towards us. I'm so sorry. Okay. Stop.
No, Rich, pull this
Rich,
way.
pull. Let me know when you're clear. Clear? No, you're not clear. You have a wrist yes. Okay, when you're done with that, lay her flat. Okay, I need one more cover up. Okay. This is the deal. We're going to do almost like we did before. Okay. Okay, young man, listen to my instructions and do not make a mistake. You are to keep your legs crossed. Do you understand me? You are to put both of your hands palms down, straight out in front of you. Push yourself up to a kneeling position. I said, keep your legs crossed. Sorry. I didn't say this in conversation. Put your hand there. Hands up in the air. You do that again, we're shooting you. Do you understand? Do not shoot me. And listen to my instruction. I'm trying to do what you don't talk. Listen.
Jesus
Hands straight
Christ.
up in the air. Do not put your hands down for any reason. You think you're going to fall, you better fall on your face. Your hands go back in the small of your back or down. We are going to shoot you. Do you understand me? Yes, sir. Crawl towards me. Crawl towards me.
Okay. Now, that stuff would really jade a person and scare the shit out of them. And you can't think straight when somebody's yelling like that to you. So clearly he got disoriented. He was already a little bit tipsy. And he probably doesn't even know why why they're behaving like this to him. So he's completely confused. They're telling him not to talk, whatever, and they're going to kill him. They're going to shoot him to kill him. And then they do. This is not law enforcement. I don't know what the fuck these people think this is. But this is a military assault on an individual. This is something you would see in war. And it's exactly what you see in war. This is how they treat civilians. And the stupid motherfuckers who are doing this, they're just being used as tools of the state. You can take a machine and do the job with this. You can get an android to do this job. So he murdered the guy, thinking that he was drawing a weapon. He was crawling towards him, probably tried to pull up his pants, of course, very nervous, and he got shot. And they will say, well, they warned them. That, my friend, police officers cannot shoot an unarmed person. No matter how much threats they yell and scream and yell and shout, you can't shoot an unarmed person. Now imagine, not only did the officer get not guilty for this incident, but he's walking the streets right now, policing to this day with this same attitude towards civilians. Shoot first, ask questions later. Now, this was back in 2016. Think how militarized police are now. How militarized they are. The things you see in Gaza today are the very same things they're trying to do now in the United States of America. In my country, they're gradually ramping it up. They haven't gotten to that point yet. But I'll show you something interesting. I'll show you something interesting. You gotta stop fucking with me, man. This is our police force, and look at the symbol on there. It's the same symbol we find Israel has. It's the Star of Rephaim, or Moloch. They like to say it's the Star of David. It's not the Star of David. Rephaim, or Moloch. I'll show you a little bit more. Sheriff's Department, Police, United States, Star of Moloch.
Now they have different stars. They have 7-point stars. They have 5-point stars. This is a 7-point star right here. You have different stars, different states. But if you're looking at marshals and sheriffs and so on, you will find the 6-point star, which is the star of Rephaim, or the star of Moloch. Now, why am I mentioning this to you guys? You ever wondered, where did police come from? How were they founded? You know, there was the sheriff. We remember the sheriff back in the day. But where did the police force come from? It's an interesting question, isn't it? The origins of modern policing can be traced to the 19th century with the establishment of the London Metropolitan Police, which was modeled after a colonial counterinsurgency force, the Irish Constabulary, and spread to the US and other parts of the world. So before the 1800s, there was no such thing as police. Yeah. Okay. The origins of modern day policing. Toughened crime laws have put an unprecedented number of nonviolent offenders behind bars, and our neighborhoods feel no more secure. This system has deep roots in slavery. Slave patrols. The origin of modern day policing can be traced back to the slave patrol. The earliest formal slave patrol was created in the Carolinas in the early 1700s with one mission: to establish a system of terror and squash slave uprisings with the capacity to pursue, apprehend, and return runaway slaves to their owners. Tactics included the use of excessive force to control and produce desired slave behavior. I, patroller's name, do swear that I will, as searcher for guns, swords, and other weapons among the slaves in my district, faithfully and as privately as I can, discharge the trust repose in me as the Lord directs to the best of my power, so help me God. North Carolina Slave Patrol. Oath. Slave patrols continued until the end of the Civil War and the passage of the 13th Amendment. Following the Civil War, during Reconstruction, slave patrols were replaced by militia-style groups who were empowered to control and deny access to equal rights to free slaves. They relentlessly and systematically enforced black codes, strict local and state laws that regulated and restricted access to labor, wages, voting rights, and general freedoms for formerly enslaved people. In 1868, ratification of the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution technically granted equal protections to African Americans, essentially abolishing black codes. Jim Crow laws and the state and local statutes that legalized racial segregation swiftly took their place. By the 1900s, local municipalities began to establish police departments to enforce local laws in the East and Midwest, including Jim Crow laws. The local municipalities leaned on police to enforce and exert excessive brutality on African Americans who violated any Jim Crow law. Jim Crow laws continued through the end of the 1960s. The crisis in policing is the culmination of 1,000 other failures of education, social services, public health, gun regulation, criminal justice department, and economic development. The New Yorker, January 13, 2020. A continuing bias. The criminal justice system is heavily impacted by the bias of police mentality and outdated judicial precedents. The system is largely driven by racial disparities, and the Black community continues to be target. The results are brutal and long-lasting. All cruelty begins with dehumanization, not seeing the face of the other, not seeing the whole humanity of the other. A cultural regime of dehumanization has been constructed in many police departments. In that fertile ground, racial biases can spread and become entrenched. The Atlantic, June 16, 2020, the culture of policing is broken. The legacy and effects of biased policing are far-reaching. The U.S. is the home of the world's largest prison population and the highest per capita incarceration rate. As of May 2020, there are 655 people incarcerated per 100,000. I don't know what that means. Okay, per 100,000 people. Okay, I got you. Prison, parole, and probation operations cost U.S. taxpayers $81 billion a year. The relationship between law enforcement and our communities is fractured because of decades of bad system that has let countless issues go unaddressed. Derek Johnson, NAACP President and CEO. Did you know? Holding police officers accountable is difficult. In 2020, there were 1,021 fatal police shootings. In 2019, there was 999 fatal shootings. Additionally, the rate of fatal police shootings among Black Americans was much higher than any other ethnicity, starting at 5 fatal shootings per million of the population as of March 2021. Since 2005 through June 24th, 2019, 104 non-federal law enforcement officers have been arrested in connection with fatal on-duty shootings. To date, only 35 of those officers have been convicted of a crime, often a lesser offense such as manslaughter or negligible homicide rather than murder. Only 4 officers have been convicted of murder during this period and seen their convictions stand. Another 23 officers were acquitted in a jury trial, and 9 were acquitted during a bench trial decided by a judge. 11 other cases were dismissed by a judge or prosecuted. In one instance, no true bill was returned from a grand jury. Currently, there are 24 non-federal law enforcement officers with pending criminal cases for fatal shootings, and these people are large, by the way. The cost of police brutality is high. While many police brutality and fatal police shootings are not prosecuted in criminal court, victims and the families of victims have been able to pursue civil judgments, which cost millions of taxpayers' dollars every year. $175.9 million in civil judgments and claims for police-related lawsuits was paid by the New York City during the 2019 fiscal year. New York City has the largest police force of 36,000 members, serving 8.3 million people. $500 million was paid out by the city of Chicago between 2004 and 2014 for police misconduct-related lawsuits. The Chicago Police Department has 12,000 officers serving 2.7 million people. Okay, let's stop right there. Now, I thought I would talk about the origin of policing because one of the craziest things is we don't really need police in our society. And that sounds crazy, but it's true. We really don't need police officers to regulate our society. Now, we've heard of the sheriff, the sheriff's department, the sheriff's deputy in different towns and villages. They had that. But again, policing and modern policing, no matter what you look at it, it stemmed from slavery in the United States of America. Now, people say, the modern policing started in the 19th century, in the 1800s, but it's actually happened. It actually started way before that in another incarnation. And the idea behind policing was to keep people in line, to maintain the status quo, to maintain the order. It's not to maintain the law. It's not to uphold the law. Even though a lot of police officers are actually under the misconception that's what it's for. That was never what it was for. And that's what a lot of people don't know. And I thought I'd share it with you guys today. And you just do a simple little Google search. You can go even deeper than that. It's spiritual as well. It's very spiritual. And it shows you how evil and how unrighteous this thing is. And for more learned people who are able to delve much more deeper into these matters, and it really is good for them to do so, you will see how detrimental these things are. You ever wondered why? Oh, why? Why does society have certain institutions? We can understand a judicial system because you need to have a rule of law. So there's a judicial system. Okay. Does the judicial system work most of the time? No, it doesn't. It's cumbersome. It takes too much time. The crooked get free because they find some loophole in it. Money talks, bullshit walks. It's not the most effective system out there. I'm going to ask you another very good question. How efficient is your government? How efficient are the people leading you right now? Did they ever fulfill their promises that they promised you? These are really sensible questions to ask yourself. Now you have to ask yourself another question, and this is a very important question to ask yourself. Is it that these people are incredibly incompetent at what they do, or is it that the system was meant to be that way? It was meant to control you, like the Matrix controls the crops, and the crops are harvest. And then this metaphor is they harvest you for your labor. They harvest you for your money. They fleece you. Income tax. We were just recently talking about this. Income tax was only implemented very recently in our history. I don't know how many of you know this. Income tax is basically taking money from you that you earned, money that you worked hard for. They just take that money away from you, a portion of it, a percentage of it, and give it to the government. You don't even get to see that money. You get a salary of X amount of dollars, and your employer dips into your money that you supposedly earn and gives it to the government as tax. Now, how is that right in any way? Income tax came about as a result of war. World War I. The Jews convinced, at the time, the President of the United States to implement the Federal Reserve, income tax, and the IRS, as well as to implement drafts so that people had to go into the war. They didn't have a choice. And the income tax that people were taxed was to finance the war. In my country, income tax came into being in the 1950s. It was in the 1950s income tax came to be. And you have to understand you're taxed on everything you purchase. So the businesses have to pay a tax out of all of the purchases that you may purchase. So that is inherent inside of your products. Now, the government of my country back in I believe it was the late 80s, early 90s, they put an extra tax upon that tax, something called value-added tax, which is also known as VAT. So now we pay double tax on any purchase that we purchase in a store. So they double tax you. Now my government has also instituted something called property tax. So just for owning property, every year you have to give the government a certain portion of that money as a tax. This is how they're raping the people. No longer is there something called meritocracy out here. They constantly rape you. I want you to understand why you should be angry about this and doing something about it. It's not exclusive to the United States of America, this new world order that we are in. You must understand what is going on. Don't just go into the routines dumbly and stupidly, working every day, slaving every day, and you do not understand that they are raping you of your money, of your hard-earned money. It's theft. And it is wrong. Because they steal the major amounts of income the country gets from its resources. They steal the cream of it. Where you should be reaping as a participant of the country, some of the benefits of that. It should be trickled down to you so that you're living well. These inept, incompetent people, or at least apparently they look that way. It may be that they're just so corrupt that it has to be this way. These corrupt people are pocketing billions and billions of dollars. We just saw Chuck Schumer receive a check from one of the biggest companies in the United States of America so that he would toe the line. All politicians are bought off by the business community. And the business community gets their share, and the politicians, they enter into this sort of Ponzi scheme with their businesses, and they steal billions of dollars. Billions of dollars. Both from natural resource revenue coming into the country and also from the people who pay all this money in taxes. So the major population suffers while the rich get richer, and the lying and the cheaters and the stealers and the con artists, they get the cream of the crop. This is the demonic, corrupt system we live under, which is ruled by Satan, an oppressive, extractive, exploitive system. We live in modern day slavery. And you all willingly give yourselves to that. I remember my parents and my family always saying, to be successful in life, get a good job, settle down with a good family, do your job and work hard, and like a good old fucking slave. Beat to their drum. Conform to society, don't cause any trouble, and your life will be good. Gen Z knows that's bullshit. And so should you. You should be able to chart whatever part you want to chart in your life. You should take control of it. That includes every aspect of it. Who you see ruling over you and your criticisms of them, as well as holding accountable in every facet people who are responsible for X, Y, and Z. Doesn't matter what it is. Accountability is what separates these very wicked people from the average population. There are no grounds to hold them accountable, so they do whatever they feel like doing. They feel the law doesn't apply to them because they can find a loophole in it. They exploit the law. This is what you have to understand. We must hold them accountable, because if we don't, then we will suffer for it. And don't join them and be corrupt like them. They may entice you with money. They may entice you with many things. Do not join them. I was having a conversation with a brother yesterday. I was coming home in the night. And I was about to try to jump in the conversation when we were talking about secret orders. And he was trying to persuade us that secret orders have so much good in them, and they're not just evil. And this clown tried to tell us stuff. And I laughed. I laughed because you don't need to be in a secret order to understand life. You don't have to be in a secret order to be prosperous in life. You don't have to go and do all these wicked, evil things to get ahead in life. And that's what these wicked people will like you to feel. You have to pass through them. They have to meet you. They have to interview you. Don't buy it. I don't care what your vices are or where you are in your life. Human beings, we all make mistakes. But don't commit your life to wicked, evil people to get ahead for yourself. Don't sell your soul to get ahead in this life. Hold on 1 second. My battery's about to die. Let me go and charge it up. Ex-U.S. Attorney Jessica Aber investigated CIA leaker before death. So the former U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, Jessica Aber, was found dead at the age of 43 by Virginia authorities on Saturday. This Saturday gone there. She was at the helm of high-profile investigations into intelligence leaks, allegations of war crimes against Russian-linked individuals, and people suspected of providing sensitive U.S. technology to Moscow before she stepped down at the start of the year. And a CIA informant actually admitted that he had some leaks. He was a leaker to this. Now, it's clear that this lady didn't die of natural causes. She was assassinated. Clearly, she was assassinated. What she was working on for the Bureau, even though she wasn't formally an attorney anymore, I don't know. But it's clear somebody wanted to cover up something, and she, with all that information, was probably supplying some information to whoever working on something, and obviously she got killed. So she didn't just retire. Now, remember, Donald Trump, she retired just before Donald Trump came into power. What that has to do with whatever, I'm going to tell you guys right now, raise that. That's a red flag right there. Something's going on in the background that we don't know about, and it cost her her life. I think of Gene Hackman dying recently as well. And, you know, they talk about him being suicide. So I don't believe it was no suicide. I don't believe it was that he was afraid to die. And I don't believe all that bullshit that they give you in the media. I never do. Somebody as high profile as Gene Hackman, who writes books about murder and stuff like that, I wouldn't be surprised if somehow, some way, whatever he was writing on led to his murder, and someone murdered him and his wife. I don't think his wife would take her life because he was died. No, I don't believe that shit. I just don't believe it. So, somebody murdered him. Someone murdered Prince. They said Prince overdosed. No. That overdose bullshit, that only flies for certain people. We saw Whitney Houston overdose. We heard that Michael Jackson, he took the wrong medication. That's bullshit. They killed these people. These people were killed. They were murdered. Whitney Houston was murdered. Her daughter was murdered. You know who else was murdered? Bernie Mac. I don't know if they gave him something that poisoned him. I don't know how it goes, that it simulates a heart attack or whatever. Bernie Mac was killed. Okay? You gotta watch everything with question mark. This woman, I forgot what her name is right now, who slammed her car into a house. She was murdered. They killed her. She had information on the pedophilic ring, Epstein's Island, implicating her former lover in that. Ellen DeGeneres was involved in that. Ellen's hands are extremely dirty. Okay? So, a lot of these people, Oprah Winfrey, all of these people are evil, wicked people. They pretend to be nice people. They pretend to be generous people. Oprah Winfrey right now, she has, I think, school that she's doing in South Africa, but it apparently is a trafficking ring with minors. That's how wicked these people are. I'm about to get out of here, but before I go, I wanted to leave that with you guys so you could get a bigger picture of things. That the world isn't what it looks like. You know? Senior Japanese man with Gaza on my mind cap shows an anti-Israel sign outside the Israeli embassy in Tokyo. The world hates Israel. And this is Japan. This is Japan. The Japanese are standing, again, there is a difference between the people and their government. The governments are not doing nowhere near the kinds of things that the people want them to do. Japan should have boycotted all Israeli products. Should have boycotted anything that has to do with Israel. All trade, their diplomats should have been withdrawn from Israel. Because if it was up to the people would have done already taken action on this. I think any moral, ethical person right now would be saying the things that Israel is doing is just absolutely incontrovertibly wrong, and they should not even be, there should be no negotiations with them, there should be no transactions with them, everything should be shut down. I don't care. Once you're Israeli or linked to Israel, I don't care if you're a company there doing whatever that's not related to West Bank, whatever. Everything should be shut down. Israel should be isolated if it was up to the people. It's not up to the people. It's up to the governments of the people. And the governments of the people are doing nothing. The Arab countries right around Israel are showing their true colors. Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Jordan, Turkey. They're showing their true colors. The leadership of Iraq, the puppet government there. The terrorist organization of Syria. So when you put this into perspective, the very Arab neighbors, the leadership of them, not the people, they are showing their true colors. And right now in Turkey, there's a tremendous protest against Erdogan, and I think they're going to overthrow him. I think he's going to get kicked out of power. The United States was able to bomb and destroy and sabotage the line that supplies oil to Europe from Russia. Why is it no one has sabotaged or destroyed the line that supplies oil to Israel from Afghanistan through Turkey? Why haven't they not destroyed that? If Israel doesn't have oil to supply their industries, their refineries, their electricity, it's going to be big. Someone needs to attack that line, that supply line, and destroy it. They don't deserve to be getting oil. They don't deserve to be getting any trade. They're blocking trade towards Palestine. Block trade to them. That's what the Yemenis are doing. That's what the rest of the United Nations is supposed to be doing. They're supposed to isolate Israel and stop all trade with them. All. Until they comply to international law. My country should be stopping all trade with Israel. It had nothing to do with Israel. And my country should be raising the Palestinian flag and supporting a Palestinian state and preaching it to the top of the mountains and putting Palestinian flags all over the country. And so should be for the rest of the Caribbean, who know what colonialism has done to us. So should Latin America. Look at the Mexican president recognizing the ambassador to the state of Israel in her country. Look at her statement. No one in the Caribbean is doing that. Not even Barbados. Barbados, I shout out to the president of Barbados, the prime minister of the Barbados. She's doing a great job. But now you need to make a statement. Official countries need to be raising the Palestinian flag. If you really mean it and you want Palestine to be a state, then raise the flag, for God's sake. and show people. Have a day in dedication to Palestine. Make a fucking statement. None of these fucking governments are doing that. They're hoping that Palestine will disappear out the news cycle, and that's never going to happen.
Of wokeness and whatnot, and then lambaste the LGBT and the trans and whatnot. When it comes to those who call themselves anti-woke or conservatives, who make fun of wokeness and whatnot, and then lambaste the LGBT and the trans and whatnot, when it comes to Iran, they suddenly become LGBT activists.
Yeah.
And they do the same with Syria and the same with Russia. What about the gay rights in Iran? They're throwing people off cranes. You know, you hear the same thing.
And they're very obsessed with Muslim women for some reason. They want for Muslim women to walk without clothes. What's wrong with them?
This is what, if you listen to Tommy Robinson and the kind of far right in Britain and in the U.S., one of the big complaints from the extremists is, look, they don't allow their women to be free. You know, like the colonial soldiers saying, you won't let us have access to your women. I mean, this is almost the sort of meta level gripe that Western men have, because they want the women to be completely gratuitous in their liberal expressions. What makes me laugh more is the hypocrisy of those in the West that call themselves conservative. And conservative, there's a whole set of values. One of those values is you don't want to, over-sexualize society and your children, and you don't want your wife and so forth. You're conservative. You want to sort of, dial it down because that says something about your values, your family values. But they want to project this wild Western, out of control progressivism on the Middle East and Iran, and they wanted to go turbocharging there because they see that as a way to weaken Islamic culture, Middle Eastern culture, and soften it up to become more westernized. And again, this is back to that kind of colonial mentality of, I would say, not just American exceptionalism, but this was called back in the days of Teddy Roosevelt, vindicationism, which is mean that America has broken free of its colonial chains. It's now a world power, and now it's been vindicated that the American system is so good and so successful that we need to export that to the world and evangelize the American Western system to the world. And I think this is like just the latest iteration of that thing that's been going on for like 120 years in America. The neocons had their version of it. Obama, Samantha Power have their version of it, which is democracy and, freedom and that. And then now they're doing it with NGOs and Soros and weaponizing identity politics, gender, sex, and things like that. So it's just, to me, the latest episode in this long-running imperial saga. Though I think
Here we go. There's some more.
Europe should have been negotiating. Trump doesn't even recognize Europe. Why should they be at the negotiating table? Partly because Europe should have been negotiating, but it said, no, we will never negotiate until this moment.
But today I heard, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years.
Now the Europeans and Zelensky are saying, oh my God.
So we shouldn't follow what the US was doing as Europeans? This is basically what you are saying?
Of course, Europe should have a foreign policy, but they thought naively they could follow Biden. And I did tell them repeatedly, you don't let the United States blow up the pipeline that provides the energy for Europe and then sit there like a dumb idiot. We don't know who did it. Well, I can show you the president of the United States saying if Russia invades, Nord Stream will be finished.
There will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
Is that a clue? This is not foreign policy. This is doing what the United States wants, but now you obviously can't just follow Trump.
It's crazy to me a lot, like out of the 720 members of the European Parliament, which one of them, a majority, they vote to continue this war, to keep sending weapons.
Now, strangely, if you ask of all the countries who ignores the UN the most, I'm sure every member of parliament would say, oh, Russia. But you know what? Let me mention a secret to the members of parliament. The United States is the country that ignores the UN completely. It's not even close. The United States have been engaged in 100 regime change operations since the end of World War II. 100. Russia just saw the U.S. pushing further, putting its missile systems, putting NATO enlargement, leaving the Intermediate Nuclear Force Agreement, leaving the ABM agreement. Europe wouldn't acknowledge any of those provocations because the only word you could use in Europe is unprovoked. Well, to my mind, frankly, you would say, okay, we understand you had reasons for all of this and many of them legitimate. We have our fears. Now, how do we work this out? Because whatever happens, we're sharing this continent together.
Blowing up the only...
Oh, there's more people.
Millions of young people on this issue of Gaza has been incredible, because I did not believe in my lifetime that I would ever see the streets full of millions of young people on this particular issue. We couldn't pay people to be anti-war protesters after let's say, the total annihilation of hope after the Iraq War. 2 million people on the streets in London. I was there, and it just decimated and created a lot of cynicism and division, which was exacerbated by the dirty war on Syria in 2011, splits within the anti-war movement and the left. This has been incredible galvanization. And when I see the new 2.0 version of Greta Thunberg, it's been quite amazing. And so she has found an issue that's real and that resonates with her generation, and people like her leading that charge. I always say to my conservative friends, I prefer having dialogues with old left and communists, because I know where they stand. There's no hidden agendas. There's kind of an underlying ethos and value set there that is pretty much immovable. And that's one of the crises I think we're having politically, is so many people on the new left and the right are so wedded to the politics and the groupthink around these issues, especially with regards to Israel. So to paint this in America, I've tried to say that the Palestinian issue is a woke issue, that these are pro-Hamas students, and totally disingenuous, but it's enough to bamboozle a lot of Americans into believing that. So they immediately get herded into their partisan camps, believing that to be pro-Palestinian is to be pro-woke, because there happens to be young students on the left who were fighting with Ben Shapiro and Douglas Murray over the years. For those of us over the age of 30, this issue goes back decades and decades. This is a long-standing international issue, and the Palestinian issue was right there next to the South African apartheid issue, because it was always seen as a kind of a common issue. Apartheid, Palestine, they always came together as a package. So I knew what I was seeing when October 7th, post-October 7th, and those of us who followed the issue knew. But it became a kind of new issue, and history begins on October 7th for certain people, just as history begins on February 25th, 2022, for those looking at the Ukraine and Russia issue. Of course, those of us who know better know that these are there's many things that came to that point to bring that crisis on that date. Western Europe and NATO and the United States, they run off this short attention span view of the world. And that's one of the big tricks of propaganda, is to basically draw a line.
Blowing up the only cancer hospital which served over 2 million people is not an act of evil. It is a calculated act of genocide. And this is exactly what Israel did today. After turning it into a military base over the last 17 months, Israel decided to carry out a controlled explosion in the Turkish cancer hospital. And they did this because cancer hospitals cannot quickly be rebuilt. They take years, perhaps even decades, to establish. And so by destroying the only one in the area, Israel is able to expel Palestinians, because if someone has cancer, they will now have to leave the Gaza Strip so as to get treatment, even if there is some kind of ceasefire or some kind of peace. And this is exactly what Israel has been.
That's a point we already knew, we already identified, and we already went into detail on. So I decided, let's just move on past that. I've got some more stuff to tell you about, so let's keep it moving here. The U.S. acknowledges that the 5 despite regions are Russian-speaking and want to be Russian, but Zelensky might not survive it politically. The U.S. moves towards Russia's position. So that's him in an interview. I would like to talk a little bit about chemtrails and the excess metals that are found in chemtrails that could poison you and give you cancer. Chemtrails are supposed to be there to form cloud formations by putting those chemicals in the air, but the chemicals that are put into the air are dangerous towards human health and they fall to the ground. Some people are having these growths in their skin, these hair-like things coming out of their skin. It's because of the chemtrails and the chemical compositions that are inside the chemtrails. I've gone into this in quite detail. Again, they don't care about us. So they're not going to try and change that any day soon. Anyone knows the majority of people in the West stand with the people of Gaza, but most Western governments support the genocidal government of Israel. If the Western countries are democracies, as they claim, why aren't their governments overthrown? Exactly. There's something else I want to share, but I don't think I have it here. I was hoping that I had it, but I don't see it here. I'm still looking. This is Professor Jeffrey Sachs saying a war with Iran would be like World War III. Iran is not alone and will not remain alone. If we go to war with Iran, we make nuclear war all the more likely so far. Netanyahu has engaged the U.S. in 6 disastrous wars. It's about to engage us in yet one more. Of course, World War III would be the final war. Oh, here is what I want to talk about. This.
Western
This is
imperialism,
Roger Waters.
finally. Mask is off. Western
Pink.
imperialism, finally. At the end of the Second World War, we all stood around and declared universal human rights for everybody, supported, we hoped, by a kind of universally accepted international law and the Geneva Conventions and all of that. All right, well, we now know for absolute certain that a lot of our leaders, they were lying, and they knew they were lying. They have no intention of honoring the idea that all men are created equal and have certain inalienable rights. They do not believe that, and they never did. What I am hoping is that the genocide of the Palestinian people will prove to be the Achilles heel in the monster of the Western hegemony with its mask off. They're all in it together, and they've all said, actually, we didn't mean all that. We believe in empire and hegemony. And we believe that the world is a big cake and it needs to be plundered by Europeans. If you're not like us, we will steal every stick of furniture you've got. That is what the Israelis, who are mainly from Northern Europe or North America, are doing now to the indigenous population of the Holy Land, of Palestine.
Well said. Alan Mizrahi says Israel never deserved to exist, and its existence is an ongoing crime against humanity. Here is a Palestinian child eating grasses with bread in Gaza. It's not really grasses, they're herbs, but nonetheless, that's all they got to eat, man. Which is much more healthier than eating some foods, to be honest with you. But still, nonetheless, this is what they're down to. They're down to eating a little flour, a little baked thing, and some grasses. That's seasoning. The chair of Philadelphia's Cumberland County Democratic Party is calling for Senator Fetterman's resignation. Enough is enough. Fetterman no longer represents the interests of those who elected him. He seems disinterested in serving his important position, and his actions in the Senate are actively harming Pennsylvanians. As a Democratic County Party leader who worked tirelessly to elect Fetterman in 2022, who stood by him through the hardship of his recovery from stroke and depression, his complete abandonment of the core values of our party has become unattainable. I call for his immediate resignation from the U.S. Senate. Matt Rowan is the chair of Cumberland County Democratic Party. So, of course, this guy, he's all pro-Israel, and to the point where he's blocking free speech and other things, and that it's gotten so bad that Penn State Live is saying that he needs to resign. Ultra MAGA Man says, Trump, are you listening? We voted you in. The American people are done. Crimes against humanity. Stop the planes. This is a world issue. Death penalty for all responsible. Donald J. Trump could have grounded every plane from day one. He seems to be willing to endanger and poison us all and his own children and grandkids as well. Stop the spraying. Stop Monsanto. And we must allow farmers to use heirlooms seeds not being crushed by the Gates and his scams, especially the poison in the vaccines, geoengineering, HARP, 5G. We can do and will vote you out. Reparations are demanded. President Trump, stop the chemtrails. They are killing us all. And this is from a ultra MAGA man. Oh, something else here. Scroll up. Owning the weather. NOAA 2020 budget estimates. July 16, 2024. ZeroGeoengineering.com. $6.5 billion to own the weather in 2025. Controlling the weather has been a priority of the United States and other governments for decades. In 1961, President John F. Kennedy stated in a speech in the United Nations, "We shall propose cooperative efforts between all nations in weather prediction and eventually in weather control." His vision included a global system of communication satellites linking the whole world. Weather control is now a reality, as nations have partnered through the United Nations World Meteorological Organization, WMO, and the UN International Telecommunications Union, ITU, to govern what is termed weather research. Many recognize weather research governance as the overarching architecture for globalist digital prison. The UN WMO operates its own Congress without accountability, public oversight, or regard for the individual and national sovereignty. Even so, the Trump and Biden administrations agree on coordinating and funding atmospheric interventions in partnership with entities including federal and state agencies, academic institutions, militaries, corporations, private partners, and the UN WMO. The Weather Research and Forecasting Innovation Act, H.R. 353, was signed by Trump in 2017 and established the Federal Weather Enterprise, funding over 30 federal agencies, including FAA, EPA, NOAA, NASA, NES, DIS, DOD, and DHS, and others, in coordination with the U.S. Global Change Research Program. On motion to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 6093, the Weather Research and Forecasting Innovation Reauthorization Act was passed in the House on May 1st, 2024, then referred to the Senate, read twice, and referred to the Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation. NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administrations, is one of the leading weather enterprise agencies in partnership with the Department of Commerce. The current U.S. Department of Commerce Secretary is Gina Raimondo, former governor of Rhode Island. So they're looking to control, they're already controlling the weather using chemtrails and so on. It's killing people. It's killing people. It's killing people. Geoengineering. It's killing people. And they don't care. Fetterman star quit over frustration, just working on Israel all the time. The former campaign staffer, Senator John Fetterman's single-minded focus came at the exclusion of the progressive positions he ran on. So they're saying get rid of him. Anti-Erdogan protesters taunt the police in Turkey. Thousands are gathered outside the Israeli embassy in London today. United, they stand against genocide. Israeli soldiers and security forces are regularly raping Palestinian men and women, and there is multiple videos to prove it. Yet to this day, Western political media and business elites have instead been obsessed with alleged mass rapes on October 7, even though in the hundreds of hours of video footage, thousands of photos, there isn't a shared shred of evidence even a single person was raped on October 7th, let alone multiple people, let alone mass rape used as weapons of war. There aren't any alleged victims either, just a string of people who claim to have heard something from behind a bush, these stories multiple times, or discredit themselves by inventing other things. The obsession with evidence, less rapes, billionaire-backed documentaries, blockbuster New York Times investigations, statements of every important politician in the U.S., in comparison to the silence regarding the abundance of evidence of ongoing rapes, will go down as one of the greatest hoaxes and scandals in all of history. They're still bombing Lebanon, by the way. So this is what I got for you guys. I've given you an overwhelming amount of information over the last hour and 30 minutes. I hope you will do some more of your homework. What's happening on the ground in Palestine is horrible. What's happening on the ground in the U.S. and all around the world in terms of the policing is horrible. What's happening in the world with respect to Europe and all these countries which have received a lot of refugees from wars which were caused by Europe, the involvement of them as the involvement of the UK, United States, in the war that's going on right now in Gaza. Sorry, in the slaughter that's going on in Gaza, the genocide that's going on in Gaza. All of this has to be exposed and brought to light. I am Christ, I am disciple. I will see you guys later. Peace.